Good morning, everyone. Here at the RotoPros Week 8 DFS NFL Breakdown. I'm Chris Terrell. I'm here with Josh Kronfeld. How you doing today?
Doing well, Chris. Doing well, thanks. Excited for a good slate. How are you?
Doing good. I kind of slept in a little bit this morning, so I wasn't able to go get a coffee. So if I just combust or something, you'll know why. You don't have to take on the show yourself.
Yeah. Well, that makes two of us, so hopefully we can manage. Maybe it'll be a shorter show than usual.
The coffeeless RotoPros team is ready to go. All right. So this week again, watching the Philly-Jacksonville game here right now in London. We've got four teams: Atlanta, Dallas, Tennessee, and the Chargers, who are on a bye this week. So we got another 10-game main slate. This week we got a lot more high-scoring games. There are 6 games actually with a 49.5 or greater Vegas total. You got Tampa Bay, Cincinnati at 54. Seattle, Denver at 49.5, Denver, KC at 53.5, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, 49.5, Indy, Oakland at 50.5, and then the big one is Green Bay and the Rams this afternoon at 57. So that's a big one there. So my question to you, I guess, right off the bat is, which game do you believe in that number that there will be a lot of points in that game, and which one do you think is going to be a bust and maybe a good under bet this week?
As a football fan and just sports fan and everything, I'm very excited for this Rams game. I think it's going to be exactly what we expect it to be and what the point total insinuates it'll be. I think that's the right word. Anyway, Rodgers is pretty healthy. I think he's healthier now than he's been all season. So I think we can say that. He's been seen with a lot lighter brace than he had as he was kind of toughing it out before their bye week. But they're coming off a bye. Allison's back. Cobb's back. The Rams give up like 9 yards per target to tight ends. I expect Jimmy Graham to have a big day. Game script, I think the Rams, they're going to be pumped. They're at home. They score so fast. McVay's going to throw some bombs, or Gurley's going to break one early. The Packers are going to be playing from behind. And it's a ton of points. I love this game. But obviously we got to get there first. So in terms of the 1 o'clocks, I think there'll be similar vibes, but not quite as much fireworks with the Cleveland Steelers game and with the Cincinnati Tampa Bay game.
Nice. Yeah, the one out of those 6 games, the one I think maybe is going to not get to that total is going to be Seattle Detroit. I'm seeing that more like
I think Seattle's underrated.
Yeah, they've been playing better. That's more like a 44.5 type game for me. In that area, so that's a game I'm maybe going to get in on the under a little bit. I do like that Denver KC matchup. Get into it with some players and picks in that game as well. And the Indy and Oakland game, I think, has a good chance. I think Indy. Well, I'm hoping with the lineups I've made already that Indy really gets that number by themselves. It would be mega money if that happened today. The only weather concern, like last week we had some weather concerns. This week, we've only got one that's kind of, I would say, minor, I guess. There's scattered showers in Chicago at the Jets and Chicago game, but the winds are what going to factor at the most, 15 to 20-mile-an-hour winds with gusts about 30 miles an hour, it looks like, throughout the game. So kind of has me leaning more towards the Bears defense a little bit more. I think they can, with the passes being, altered a bit with that wind, I think that they can maybe get a couple turnovers along with their stacks. If Mac's back in there, he's getting back healthy again, wreaking some havoc in that backfield. So that's kind of where I'm looking at weather. As for injury news, I'm going to look at a few main slate games. We're going to break them down and kind of go over which players are going to benefit the most from some of these injuries. So the first one I have on my list here is Torrey Smith being out. And do you have any interest in Devin Funchess this week? It's a tough defense, tough matchup, but more for GPP. How about myself? I'm looking more at like a DJ Moore. He's really cheap this week, explosive player, more over Curtis Samuel. I think he had a touchdown recently here, but I'm more looking at DJ Moore myself in GPP.
I'm not really on this game at all. If I am, it's with Naked Cam. That sounds so funny to say that to people. For people who don't know what that means, that just means Cam without anyone else, like no receivers. Don't need to stack him with a tight end or running back or anything. So he's 5,800. He's priced down because of the matchup, and it's valid because Baltimore's defense is completely healthy and they're back and they're playing very well again. But this game's in Carolina. I think Cam is safe. I think you can call him cash safe. Would you?
I have been saying it all season, and on FanDuel, I look at 2 times value, and DraftKings kind of looking at that 3 times value for cash. And he's hit cash value on FanDuel every single week this year, and on DraftKings, he has all but 2 games, and he was like within 3 points in those 2 games of hitting the cash value. So,
yeah, sorry,
he's good against tough defenses too. He's really good against these tough defenses. I see the number.
He's a gamer, especially at home. Like, they're not gonna like just roll over and like get dominated at home. Like, it's just not gonna happen. You know, not against.
And he brings you that rushing yards.
He's just too good.
Gives him a nice floor.
It's very hard to stop.
There's no other quarterback like him in the NFL. That's for sure. He's like a linebacker that can run and can throw. Well, he's not as accurate, but I mean that running ability is just amazing at his size. He just runs guys over. It's awesome.
I think he's cash safe. So. My only interest in this game would be Cam. Someone mentioned Torrey Smith to me last week, and I mean, you know, I'm checking his stats now. I don't know. Oh, Torrey Smith's out. Excuse me. Sorry. Anyway, naked Cam or nothing for me. No one on John Brown, I guess, to run it back with. But yeah, I mean, not much of an interest in this game for me.
And then going over that Bears game, Allen Robinson is doubtful. I haven't seen any updated news here this morning, but not really expecting him to play. And with the fact that Taylor Gabriel kind of burned everyone last week in a very good spot, I think I like going back to him for GPPs at a cheap price tag. But the guy I'm really looking at in that Chicago game for the Chicago offense, who I think with Allen Robinson out, is Trey Burton at tight end. I think he's going to get the targets. He was so low owned last week. It really worked out for me, so I think I'm going to go back there. He's really come on strong with Trubisky lately, so especially in the red zone, like they're getting him the ball in the red zone, so I really like that.
Yeah, it's a good call. I think my concern with this game is that the Bears kind of just run away with it early. Darnold didn't look very good last week, and his top 2 receivers are out. Anun was done, and Robbie Anderson's looking like he's going to miss the game. So he's got Jermaine Kearse as his starting receiver. He's looking good with Chris Herndon at tight end, and Trendon Cannon will get a lot of targets today out of the backfield. So he's good for DraftKings where it's PPR. And just as well because the game script should favor that. Chicago should come out to somewhat of an early lead. You know, they're at home. They've been playing very well. Expect them to get points somehow early on, whether it's special teams, defense, I don't know. But, I think Gabriel's a sharp take by you, especially with Allen Robinson's out. Same with Trey Burton. Again, and this is my concerns just with that they'll only really be throwing the ball through the first half.
That makes a lot of sense.
But, that's not really a reason to not take people when it makes sense sometimes, because especially on a week like this where there's only 10 games and there's just not a lot of good plays. You have to, stick with that and not overanalyze something like you just said, which does make sense and should be called a good play in Taylor Gabriel and Trey Burton for that matter.
Yeah, there's a lot of value out there, but it seems a lot of the value plays this week are kind of not in favorable spots, I guess you could say. So going with 1 or 2 of them that maybe a little bit lower owned this week, maybe a way to go, to get in those top running backs. Because, Todd Gurley's hit. I think he's at 11,000 on FanDuel this week, which just seems absolutely ridiculous. It's like prime Clayton Kershaw on DFS to MLB price. Yeah, so moving on, you mentioned one that was on my list there that Robbie Anderson's going to be out, Enunwa's out, Powell's out. So we could see a lot of Crowell in the backfield, but again, bad matchup. So if you really want to go,
the game and go for Crowell, he'll be starting running back, obviously, but they're not going to be running the ball much when they're down early on the road. It's going to be hard for them to get points or move the ball for that matter. So you see, here comes Trenton Cannon. I think that's his name. He had 4 or 5 catches last week. He led the Jets with 70 yards. They're going to have similar personnel out there as they had before because of the injuries. And it's going to be similar game script as last week where they were down early and often to the Vikings. So I think that's pretty safe to assume he's going to have some sort of similar stat line depending on how well the Bears D plays.
Yeah, Jermaine Kearse scares the crap out of me.
Yeah.
He, Kearse out of the slot seemed like a good play. He could maybe take advantage of that matchup, which he absolutely didn't. But now he's the number 1 wide receiver, so they should be able to shut him down, I would think, if he's going to be running his routes on the outside. So it's very scary. I mean, he's probably going to be 1% owned, but again, they're going to have to throw a lot if they're down. But again, it's going to be a scary spot for him being the number 1 wide receiver this week. So mostly just staying away from the Jet side of things pretty much altogether this week. But yeah, moving on. In Cincinnati, that high-scoring game, you got banged up receiving corpse. I mean, in the backfield, you don't have Gio Bernard. You no longer have Tyler Eifert. He's been out for a while. Tyler Kroft is out. John Ross has now been ruled out. So you got a terrific matchup. Could see heavy usage for 3 players. That's Mixon, Green, and Boyd. And the other one I'm looking at kind of as a punt tight end this week is Uzoma. If you really need that savings, you're getting wide receivers and running backs, and you really need to go with a cheap one. He's the cheap tight end I'm looking at this week. But I think Mixon himself, especially in a positive game script, is going to get the most usage. And then I've even got some stacks with Cincinnati where I've faded Mixon a little bit, thinking the game's going to be a shootout, and gone with Green and Boyd with Dalton, a mix of each of them, and then some with both of them in there as well.
Yeah, I like play everyone in this game. I think it's going to be a total shootout. There's really no one I don't like. Mixon should be the feature back again. Gio Bernard's out. You just said it. Boyd and AJ Green have incredible matchups. The only thing I'll be a tiny bit wary of is the Bucs looked like semi-decent last week with the new defensive coordinator in place. So, Baker Mayfield had a tough time moving the ball, and the only score he really had, I guess he had a better second half than the first half, but they didn't look as terrible as they had before. So, I'm not just gonna plug guys in. That being said, I think it's a great matchup. Boyd and Green are getting a little pricey, so it's not quite like a no-brainer that it was before. And obviously they're priced up because of the matchup too. I'm not that high on Uzoma. There's just better plays around it, safer plays I think around him. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think Green makes a nice GPP pivot for people who are playing a lot of Antonio Brown and Devontae Adams type plays today. So AJ Green's in between them with Price on DraftKings. Tyler Boyd's been very consistent. I think he had a bad week last week. Did he kind of burn people a little bit? Yeah. So, there you go.
Like the third quarter or something.
Yeah, you love the.
I've been on him all year. I really like him.
Mm-hmm. No, he's a great player.
Love those slots.
Great play. Yeah, my concern has been how well will Jameis do on the road. So, he's looked great so far. So he's averaging over 300 yards a game, dating back to last year. So, that's starting to become what I expect from him.
Yeah, for sure. And then we got a question on the other side of this game. What about Peyton Barber versus Cincinnati? And I don't like it at all. I think Cincinnati's going to roll with this game. I got them in one of my parlay bets this week, and game script's not going to be really there for him. So I'm kind of on that Jameis, Evans, Deshaun Jackson, and Howard kind of, that's my kind of other cheap tight end as a pivot play off of maybe like the Njokus of the world this week. So that's kind of the direction I'm going. I probably won't have any shares of Barber. How about yourself?
Yeah, no, neither will I. I think he's a little banged up too. Like, he was questionable to even play. He messed his ankle up, I think, at the end of the game last week. So there's just no reason to take a chance on someone like him who's already banged up in a matchup that definitely doesn't favor a game script where he would be heavily involved.
Yeah, he doesn't get the passes like you're using Jaquiz Rogers and other guys. Like, he hasn't had more than he's only had more than 2 targets once.
Yeah. The coach is going to go give him like a bunch of screen passes if his ankle's, not 100%.
Yep. Okay, so moving on, another one of these high-scoring games in Denver. Royce Freeman's been ruled out this week, so him and Phillip Lindsay have been really sharing the ball this year. So myself, I'm using a lot of Phillip Lindsay. His explosiveness, he catches the ball in a high-scoring game here. They're going to be from behind, so I think he's probably in line for 5 to I would even go as high as maybe his ceiling would be even 10 targets. So I think there's a good shot for Phillip Lindsay to hit and crush value this week as, the main running back finally. I've just been waiting for one of these guys to be the main running back since week 1 when Lindsay just like appeared out of nowhere, came out of the weeds and became like a good RB2 kind of thing. So I think he has a chance of being an RB1 this week. And the Eagles just scored a touchdown. Damn it.
Oh, keep forgetting there's a morning game. I totally forgot.
Yeah. I got it on in the background. I got a bet on it, so kind of went with Jacksonville plus 3.5.
How's
early?
What's the score? Oh, it just started. Damn,
no, 10-6.
Anything.
So thoughts on Philip Lindsay, your side of things?
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely. I'll have a lot of Lindsay too. I think he's already been getting upwards of pretty much around 15 touches a week with Freeman there. So now that Freeman's out, like, look, don't get me wrong, Devontae Booker is going to get a lot of, if anything, it's kind of worse for him that Booker's there because Freeman was never going to get any receptions. And now it's kind of flip-flopped a little bit where I don't expect any sort of regression for Lindsay in terms of touches. In fact, the opposite. I expect him to have an increase in touches this week with Freeman out, but I do expect him to potentially have less receptions and less targets than what you may think because Devontae Booker is pretty good out of the backfield catching the ball. That's like probably his best thing. And there was a time where I don't know. It's Lindsay's team, so to speak. Like I said, he's getting 15 touches with Freeman there. So for Freeman to be out, there's no reason to expect that to go down at all. I don't think it's going to be like 25 touches, like with the 10 targets and 10 receptions. But I like Lindsay a lot. It's a high scoring game, like you just said. Game script favors Lindsay's type of game. It'll be him and Booker out of the backfield. Booker is even an interesting GPP play in my opinion. Devontae Booker for the Broncos. They're going to be down. They're going to be throwing a lot. The Chiefs' defense has been better lately, but I still think Denver could potentially. You asked me earlier about a game that I think the under could be a decent bet on, and I think the Chiefs could. The defense could stop Denver a little bit, and I think Denver could stop Kansas City to start the first half a little bit.
Nice, I like it. I've got a question on this game while we're still here, and someone asked if this is maybe the week that Demaryius Thomas has a huge game. Now, myself, I'm doing a lot of Keenum stacks just because of the games. Kansas City being 10-point favorites, I think Denver's gonna have to go to a pass heavy, especially in the second half of the game, pass heavy game plan. And I think I like both Sanders and Thomas. And in the lineups that I've made where I've gone Keenum and I wanted to go maybe 2 or 3 high-end running backs, Thomas is really cheap, especially on DraftKings. He's got the upside. We know that. He's kind of been in trade talks a lot lately. And I mean, if he wants to get traded, he better put up some good games, if they want to get value for him. So I think this is a good spot for him with his price down, game script up. Kansas City allows a lot of passing yards. So I think it is fit. It is a game that is fit for Demaryius Thomas. So definitely be having some of him in my lineups this week.
Yeah, I don't think that's the worst call in the world. It's good to have exposure, in this game, and I would have no problem if maybe with Demaryius Thomas. Philip Lindsay's my preference. I think they're around the same price. So with Lindsay's he's all over the place, and he was just really gaining chunk yardage in his last game against Arizona, I think, and he was just looking really good out there. So I like Lindsay, but Demaryius is not a bad call. No, I mean, there's just a lot of other receivers I like this week more than him. He's been having a tough time catching the ball this season, a lot of drops, and I think he needs a fresh start. But he's a very talented player.
Yeah. And then jumping into the afternoon, the big 57 over-under this week is the Green Bay and Rams. And we've got Cooper Kupp out again. So I know for myself, I really like Robert Woods as like a cash game wide receiver this week. He's solid. He's getting a lot of targets. And then for GPP upside, love Cooks as that home run hitter.
Yeah, I think that's totally, you said it perfectly. Good analysis. They're moving Woods into the slot, obviously, with Cooper Kupp out, which is what you were mentioning. And Green Bay gives up like 10, a lot. Like their slot corner is really bad. The guy's like 35th out of 40th or something in PFF. And like slot yards per attempt or something like that. But I like Woods a lot this week. Like we talked about earlier, Rodgers is healthy as he's been all year, at least that's for sure. The team is pretty healthy. Looks like Cobb will play. He's questionable, but he had a full practice Friday. And Allison's back too. So they really, really have I think it's the first time all season that they've been healthy and they've had their full complement of weapons. So I like the Rams to win this game, but I would not be shocked if this is a shootout that's like 80 points, literally.
Both quarterbacks, 350-plus yards.
Yeah, definitely. Goff's going to have at least one, if not two, 50-plus yard touchdowns. Gurley's going to have 2 to 3 touchdowns, maybe even 4, depending on how many points are scored. And, Rodgers is not going to roll over. So if Green Bay somehow does win this game, it'll be like 51-48 or something crazy.
Yeah, and you'll see Rodgers with a huge day.
It could break the slate.
4 or 5 touchdowns. Yeah, exactly.
I think this game
If you're playing the main slate and you're going into the afternoon, sitting near the top of your contest before that Rams Green Bay game, yeah, don't get too excited yet because it could break the slate.
Exactly.
Yeah, maybe take a screenshot before that Green Bay Rams game starts because you might not see green screen after that game.
Show your wife and then turn your phone off for the day and go to the movies.
Yeah. Next up, I want your opinion on Marshawn Lynch out for the season. Coach Gruden came out and said Doug Martin's ready for his lead, a lead back role. He's kind of the running back. Myself this week, I'm not really looking to him. I'm looking more to a little bit on the cheaper side. I think a couple $100 on each side. Jalen Richard. He's a good pass catcher out of the backfield, and I think Oakland in that negative game script are going to have to throw a little bit more. They don't really have a lot to throw to anymore after trading Cooper away. So I think Richard gets involved, 5+ targets for him in the backfield. He's really cheap, so he's one of the value running backs I'm plugging in if I'm going, maybe an expensive running back and an expensive wide receiver in there in some of my stacks and GPPs. So he'll definitely one that I'm looking to this week over Doug Martin. Just not really a fan of Doug Martin. Maybe if they were favorites, but I don't think we're going to see Oakland a favorite for the rest of the year.
Yeah, dude, I love the cheap running backs this week. It's just like a week. I think that's how I'm going to stand out in GPPs. And one of my other favorite GPP plays this week is Martavis Bryant. He's moving into the starting lineup, obviously, with the Amari Cooper trade. He's healthy. He's back. He's been practicing. The offensive coordinator has been talking him up during the week, saying that, the Amari Cooper trade really – he's excited to see what it does for Martavis. He's a talented guy. He's got good skill set. So this is really going to open up some opportunities for him. The Colts, they're not the worst secondary, but they're certainly not the best. So there should be plenty of opportunities in this game. A lot of people were talking trash about Derek Carr all week, and that picture of him crying resurfaced. And, hey, whatever, man. I'm not a football player. And with the stuff that these guys go through, the injuries, and, I'm sure it's absurd. So, I'm not talking trash about him crying or whatever. Just, maybe try and keep that off the field so other people don't see you who do care. But the point is, he's probably going to want to silence those critics, and the best way to do that is with a great performance and a lot of yards and a win, most importantly. So I agree with you that I think the game script should favor the Colts, but I really don't think that's a given. I think the Colts played the Bills last week, who kind of suck, especially with Derek Anderson in week 1. So, yeah, they had a great week. They looked pretty dominant. They got a lot of points early and often at home, but they're going all the way across the country. They're in Oakland. These fans are crazy there. And, I just think they're at least going to make it a little tough for Luck. Luck's great. Colts are easily going to break Luck's going to break what am I blanking on the word? Sorry, the passing record, I guess, for most passes attempted. You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. Sorry. Brain fart. Anyway, I like Martavis Bryant a lot. You asked me about Doug Martin. I like him in season long. Gruden did say something about him being ready for a feature back role. So if Oakland can come out to a nice little early lead, Martin's got fresh legs, that's for sure. So if their O-line plays well, he could, he'll hit value, but obviously, like you just said, Jalen Richard is going to get all the receptions. So if, in fact, the Colts do come out early or get a lead or something like that, it's going to be all Richard, and Martin's not going to do much. So I think that's a good call. But the point is, I really like on DraftKings in particular, the cheap running backs like Richard but more Lindsey, who's going to get goal line rushes as well as receptions. Richard's not going to get the goal line most likely, but that's what you look for in DFS, especially DraftKings.
And if Chicago. If that game script's up there for Chicago, it definitely makes sense. Maybe a Jordan Howard week. Everyone's going to be off him because he's kind of been terrible. Doesn't really fit that offense. But if they get up big, he might get his 15, 20 carries and get a touchdown.
When they were up big on Tampa, they still kept throwing because Tampa was so bad secondary at the time. The Jets aren't like that. So if the Bears go up kind of big or whatever, they're going to run the ball with Howard a lot.
Yep. Another question we had, so that pretty much the last injury thing with Matt Breida. I think he's unlikely to play. He might have been ruled out since we started the show here, but I'm going to be another cheap running back, seeing as we're on that topic, is Raheem Mostert.
Oh, he's my guy, bro. Let me put it like this. I was playing Mostert before Breida was even ruled out. So if you're telling me he's been ruled out, then that's just that kind of upsets me because then that means more people are going to be on him.
Yeah, that's true. And, Alfred Morris has kind of been the forgotten guy there. So Mostrat's really come in. So he's been good. He's been really good.
Wow,
Kind of
Deshaun
got that explosiveness.
Trade too.
Huh.
So what does that mean?
I want to win.
So I don't think we should play him today.
No, he's kind of that home run up or down anyway. So, yeah, who knows what that's going to do. So another question we had here before we get going and shut her down for the day and go make some lineups is your favorite cash game quarterbacks, someone asked. So mine personally, I wrote them up in the article. Andrew Luck, just because he throws the ball a ton. Oakland, I think, is bottom 5 in passing yards per game allowed. They're 19th in fantasy points to quarterbacks. And just that volume is there. He's got T.Y. Hilton back, and he's going to get more than 4 targets this week.
Checking Mustard.
Cash game quarterbacks.
And you said Luck?
Luck and even Jameis Winston I like against Cincinnati. He's been up there throwing for 350 yards, and now he's going up against Cincinnati, who is the second most passing yards per game this year, and they rank 28th in fantasy points against QBs. So for me, it's Luck and Winston are my 2 favorite.
Yeah, I think you're going to want some exposure to this late game for sure. So I guess for cash, man, I think you can make a case for Rodgers. I really do. What do you think?
That makes a ton of sense.
I mean, I think you can go Rodgers and Cam would probably be my favorite 2 cash quarterbacks.
Nice. And I like all 4 of those. Personally, I think I like Cam. Looking at the early slate, there's you don't get some of those quarterbacks. You got Mahomes, who's really expensive. Who, like you said, Denver's been a pretty good defense, so he might not pay off that $9,200 salary on FanDuel this week.
I don't know. I expect Mahomes will do very well. Don't get me wrong. I didn't mean like Denver's going to stop him. I just meant it's a pretty high over under for only one team to really do the scoring, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. So there seems to be a lot of cash game options, but I do agree with you on Cam, just with his floor, with his running, especially on the early slate for me at his price. For FanDuel, $1,100 discount is huge.
Yeah, for FanDuel, Roethlisberger is my cash QB.
Yeah, and then I will also, if you're looking to. I haven't done it yet. I'm kind of looking towards it more on the early slate, is going with Case Keenum. It seems really risky, but at his price in the early slate, I think he's going to get that 35-plus passing attempts this week. He's got 2 good wide receivers. He's got Phillip Lindsay to throw to there as well. I don't think he needs to do a lot. I don't think he needs to get to that 300 passing yards to hit value this week. So he's someone I'll look at as a punt. If you want to go that way in early cash games, more on DraftKings at 5,100 is something I'm looking at, but that's pretty much it for me.
Yeah. What's next?
Other than that, we kind of touched on quite a few players. We touched on most of the high scoring games and our favorite players. One guy we didn't talk about when looking at running backs that my 2 favorite plays at running back, if you're paying up this week, are James Conner. He's had 2 big games in a row. He's the man in the backfield there in Pittsburgh. And then Kareem Hunt, I think the game script's going to favor him getting – he's not going to get 20 carries, I don't think. He catches the ball really well, though, so I think he's going to get the 20-plus touches, somewhere in that range of 15, 16 carries, 5 to 6 receptions, somewhere in there. And I think he's got the ability to really crush value again this week. So those are kind of the 2 running backs I'm paying up for. Todd Gurley's going to be more of a – GPP play for me this week, just with how expensive he is. I'm kind of concentrating a lot on FanDuel here this morning. And then a guy that I've really been breaking down for GPPs and looking at, mentions and stuff. I use FanShare Sports to kind of break down who's being talked about throughout the industry throughout the week. And the trend is Todd Gurley and James Conner are seeing like a ton of the mentions up in the upper range of pricing. And right in between them is Saquon Barkley, who is there's a good chance he's going to be like 10% or less owned in GPPs, while the other guys are in that 20+% range. It's a tough matchup, as we're looking at the fantasy numbers, because Washington ranks 8th in fantasy points against running backs, but they've given up a ton of rushing yards, and he's like an elite pass catcher. He's going to get his touches whether they're winning, whether they're losing. He's just like if you watched that game last week, Eli just pass after pass was just dump off, dump off, dump off, dump off, dump off.
Defense or anything. He just like in his mind before the ball's even snapped, he knows he's giving it to Saquon.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll take that if he's going to be super low owned this week because we know he's got a floor and he's got a huge ceiling as well. So that was just kind of my take on some running backs at the top.
I think it's a good take. I think I'm stuffing Gurley into everything today, not just because he's been so consistent and I love the game. I think this is a rare game where they could be challenged a little bit and they're going to need him to really have a special day. But I completely agree with Kareem Hunt. Completely agree with James Conner. They're both massive point totals. Going to have great days. I'm just weirdly feeling Raheem Mostert and
Lindsey.
Yeah, exactly. This week.
Mm-hmm.
So I got
with those guys you get.
He's not going to play, or he's going to play like 5 snaps like last week.
Yeah.
And I expect Arizona to put up some points today. Arizona's going to, they got Byron Leftwich at the offensive coordinator now. He's gone out of his way to talk about how he wants to get the ball to David Johnson, and he was studying with Bruce Arians when he used to play, and all he knows everything about how to get the ball to David. So I expect them to get the ball to David Johnson a lot today. He's a very good play at 6,700. It's just for me, there's just so many good guys that I can't fit them all in, and I definitely want Gurley in there. So I'm choosing to kind of, Njoku's a little, he's not cheap, but I expect a big day out of David Njoku. He's going to be the most highly owned tight end for sure.
Yes.
Rightfully so.
That's why I like going to Howard.
Yeah, Pittsburgh struggled.
I'm going to Howard.
Yeah, I like O.J. Howard. I think it's a very sharp pivot, especially with this Deshaun Jackson news. So I would be surprised if Deshaun Jackson plays many snaps today.
And then in that same Arizona game, I agree with you that they're going to put up some points. I'm really starting to like, especially at his price, Christian Kirk in the mid 4K range on DK, mid 5K range on FanDuel. He's a cheap wide receiver. If you are paying up for running backs that you can get in your lineup, there's quite a few cheap wide receivers that I've been kind of breaking down this week. I love Marvin Jones with his end zone targets that he gets. I think he's tied for the lead or right off the lead in end zone targets, which is awesome to see. He's a GPP guy. He hasn't been the safest. Galladay's kind of been the safest, but Golden Tate has probably the toughest matchup of those three. So I think it's a day where maybe Marvin Jones and Galladay, my prediction is that they're both going to score a touchdown this week. And then Jordy Nelson a little bit in that game script for Oakland. Not a lot of pass. He's the number one wide receiver now with Cook. Cook's a tight end, obviously. Number one pass catcher. So I think they're both going to get theirs this week. So there's some nice low end, I guess, value all around. So the slate's really shaping up nice, where there's values and there's high end plays that you can pay for at each position, which is going to keep the ownership on a lot of these value guys, I think, down a bit this week, being that there's so many of them. So especially with all the high scoring games, there's a ton to choose from this week, even though there's only 10 games on the main slate. The early slate's a little bit tricky when constructing lineups, but the main slate I really love.
There's like literally 8 or 9 running backs that I like. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, that pretty much covers everything here this week. Before we go, if you're not a RotoPros member yet, make sure to get over to the site. We got a 2-week free trial going on right now. Gets you access to the Slack chat channel, all of our articles that we put up throughout the week. We cover soccer, NBA, NFL, PGA, NASCAR, NHL. Been doing very good with all of them so far this year. So make sure to get over there, get your 2-week trial. And finally, we're doing a DraftKings contest this week, Beat the RotoPros. It's a 30-man contest, only $2 to enter. Get in there, and the winner this week will not only win the cash from the contest, but you'll also get to join Josh Harris and Rob and I next week in our 4-man, and we're going to have a nice prize there as well if you can beat all 3 of us next week in the 4-man. Make sure to like the video, helps us out a ton. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notifications. We got a ton of videos coming out on our YouTube channel all week long, so you'll get notifications letting you know when those are coming out. And other than that, let's see some green screens this week. Thanks for joining me, Josh, and we'll be back at it next Sunday, week 9.
Nicely done, my friend. For everybody, good luck. And thanks, Chris. Good job. Talk to you guys later.
Yeah. Cheers, buddy.